600 ESPN El Paso. 505-6009, that is our telephone number to get into the show. 505-6009 as we get going today. You can also hit us up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 600 ESPN El Paso. That's at 600 ESPN El Paso on X, formerly known as Twitter. No Jay Jaffe for the next couple of weeks. He's moving and apparently selling his home and needed a couple of weeks to just get his stuff together. And excited about that. So with no Jay today, we'll just have the Jeff Erickson experience coming up here at 5:20. And then Keitha Adams is going to drop by today at 6 o'clock. Excited for that. Miners win last night. It wasn't easy last night. It was a much tougher struggle than a lot of us thought it would be, but they did get the win. They're off to a 3-0 start. And much like the men, the women will have tougher tests as things continue to progress. But excited to have Keitha with us here as well. So as you might imagine, yeah, we've got a good show today. It should be a lot of fun. And Adrian, appreciate you covering for me yesterday. My son was under the weather at the beginning of this week. And yesterday I needed to stay home and take care of him while my better half was busy with her work. So we kind of took turns. Monday was she was home with him. Yesterday was my day. And between the two of us, he's now back to school. He's healthy again, which is great. And looking forward to having the opportunity to spend 3 hours with you. Although I did listen to yesterday's show. I heard you try to weasel out at some of your picks for the Chick-fil-A Sunbowl Select'em contest and switch them. I am happy Bernie said absolutely not to you. And, hey, look, this week coming up is the toughest week of the season. These are the hardest games to pick. A lot of games could have gone either way. And you got to realize something. My lead could completely evaporate by Sunday morning. It's very possible that my big lead over you and Bernie, how many games do I have over you right now?
I believe you're 2 up on me and 3 up on Bernie,
yeah.
And so that means Bernie and I are in the battle for last right now.
Yeah, and that, by the way, I could be in last by next week because there's so many tough games to pick. And I loved how you guys kept picking with your hearts on what matchups you'd like to see end up and why you pick.
Yeah.
I never do that. I always pick with my head. Always. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like I have a lead right now. Now, I picked with my head this week, not with my heart. It'll be interesting to see if my lead grows, stays the same, or shrinks after all the picks are done.
You know, one of the interesting things yesterday is Bernie strategic in which picks he made. Notice the North Carolina Tar Heels pick that he made very strategic.
Yep.
And hopes that maybe Clemson would get a chance to be out here for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. How do you blame him? He threw out Clemson USC as a possibility yesterday, and I flagged that one in a big way, knowing how much power those two schools, just based on the name itself and the likabilities of those universities, how much hype that could generate here at the Sun Bowl. By the way, Steve,
yes.
Hearing from some Bruins reporters today, that Chip Kelly is expected to be fired after the game between them and USC. If it's not that game, it could be the last game of the season. But it looks like UCLA wants to move on from their head coach, Chip Kelly. Seen a lot of coaching changes happen across college football recently.
Well, Chip can't come here because they were here last year, and the rules usually are that you don't have to take a team 2 years in a row. So that seems to always be the Sun Bowl's luck, doesn't it? That a coach gets fired right before they come and coach this game.
Right. I mean, I felt like that was the case, for Arizona State not too long ago.
Miami.
With Graham as their coach, and he gets canned. Miami, exactly, with them. So that's definitely a possibility. It's not going to happen at Dallas, Steve. I just hear how many people are excited about all the great teams, all the great names who could potentially be here on December 29th.
It's wild. It's so wild. But no, I'm like, I did not pick based on what needs to happen in order for teams to get here. I went ahead and did things a little different, Adrian. I just picked based on, I took Clemson because I think they're playing really well right now. So that's why I took Clemson. I didn't take North Carolina to hope that Clemson gets here. I took Carolina because they've seemed to have righted the ship recently, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I felt like with Clemson, they have been kind of turning the corner. Look at that great win they had against Notre Dame recently. Klubnik, I think he's very polarizing. Some people really like him. Some fans in Clemson can't stand him, but he's grinding out the season, and he's a young quarterback, and I think it's fair to let young quarterbacks make mistakes throughout their progression in their young careers. So
no,
let's
right.
not be too hard on him, right?
No, that's 100% correct. Hey, by the way, the beginning of yesterday's basketball game between Golden State and the T-Wolves was wild. This was a crazy start to the game. It was nuts what went on. And, I mean, here's the audio, folks.
Step back three. And so we're scoreless. We'll stay 0-0 the first 2 minutes. And then look at Klay Thompson and McDaniels. What is going on with that? Wow. You've got a full-on fracas going on. Draymond came in to defend Klay. This got out of hand very quickly.
Look at Klay Thompson's jersey. It's ripped up. Klay's boxing him out, puts his hand on his jersey. Jaden McDaniels puts his hand on his jersey. Now they're swinging each other around. Gobert gets in there. Draymond's got him in a headlock. Him on the left side over here.
I mean, Adrian, let me say this, okay? I guess for 2023, that's a fight now in the NBA. I mean, you ever watch those throwback videos on YouTube showing you what real fights were like in the 70s and 80s and even 90s in the NBA when guys threw like the greatest? You could have guys just mix it up and it would stay in the games and not even be thrown out of a game or be suspended. But this yesterday was, they call it a fracas, they call it a fight. In order for this to be a fight, I would like to see punches thrown and landed. And this was more grappling and pushing and shoving. And I don't know if I'd really call this a fight.
I wouldn't either, and it's really just initiated by Draymond Green's chokehold of Rudy Gobert, right? Because the Klay Thompson, Jaden McDaniels, that's just pushing and shoving right there. That's nothing. And then when Draymond Green comes out of nowhere, it's like he's trying to throw out his audition tape for WWE. He wants to still throw his name out there to try to be a wrestler one day. He's talked about it in the past. Why not? Why couldn't it happen? Draymond Green throwing that chokehold, and then Rudy Gobert's just flaying and wants a call going his way. Well, of course, Draymond gets kicked out. He's probably going to miss some games because of it. It's not a fight, in my opinion, whatsoever. It was, in my opinion, Draymond Green overreacting because these two teams don't like each other. Minnesota and Golden State got into it. Chippiness last game. They were talking a lot of smack. It was initiated by the Timberwolves' best player, Anthony Edwards, and now we're getting a chance to see them. I'm not surprised whatsoever. What I am surprised about, Steve, real quick on basketball, is the fact that the Timberwolves look like a legit contender early on. I loved what they've shown so far, and it's because Anthony Edwards, one of the best young players in the league right now.
By the way, Spurs Thunder got into it also yesterday with some pushing and shoving. A hard foul led to pushing and shoving. And once again, I mean, I saw this, and I saw guys go at it, and I don't know, Adrian. Again, it's another one where I see a hard drive to the basket, guy gets tied up, hits the deck, then everybody comes to his attention, and we've got pushing and shoving. I actually didn't think it was even that hard of a foul. I thought they were tied up with the basketball, and the player got flung down in the process, and then all of a sudden comes the pushing and shoving. The better story to me is how these NBA courts have completely changed. I don't know if you saw what the Thunder did, but their court is like all blue and logo. It almost looks like you're playing on water. So to me, the NBA is I don't know. I mean, they're taking like a page out of Europe maybe, but they have completely changed the design of the color coding for a lot of these basketball courts. Do you like what you see now?
No, none whatsoever. I mean, dude, I'm a daily basketball guy, so I hate watching these courts. I hate it. I mean, maybe for younger fans and stuff like that, they like the color schemes. They like seeing a little mix-up. Yeah, sure, it's fun for just a small stretch, but my eyes can't take it. Like, visually, I'm like, I don't like it. The aesthetics are not appealing to me. The worst one by far has to be the purple court that the Suns have. I've watched way too many Phoenix games recently for some reason. Watch them against OKC and watch them against another team in, I think it was the Lakers, and I just how they looked.
So, let me ask you this: are most courts now completely covered in their home team colors, and you don't even see any natural wood anymore on the floor?
Right, exactly. Isn't that such a weird thing in itself?
It is weird. It is weird. I watched the Knick game earlier this season, and the Garden still looks like the Garden. They haven't made that place look like a freak show, but at least as far as the court goes. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the painting. I'm trying to just get a handle on it. I mean, is that how you're going to try it? If you're the NBA, painting the floor, is that how you're going to start to appeal to fans, new fans?
Hopefully not. Hopefully this is just a one-off right here.
I don't know.
Hopefully this is just an NBA in-season tournament product and something that we don't have to look at all season long.
Is that what it is? Maybe.
Maybe so. It's the in-season tournament that's going on right now. Very pointless, if you ask me, because it doesn't do much for these teams. Guys like Steph are out right now with a knee sprain. Other guys are sitting out of some of these games. So what do we even make of this in-season tournament?
Yeah, I don't. Okay, apparently, according to Chad, who's listening to the show right now, it's all because of the tournament. They're calling this tournament flooring.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes 100% sense.
All right. So, as he put it, they have trophies on the floor scheme is what they're kind of doing. And it does look a little ridiculous to me. I don't know. I just don't know if that's really what it's going to be. I don't know if they feel like that's going to get more people excited.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe it's something that they just want to appeal to new fans, everybody makes big deals about uniforms, different apparel that ends up in the league, so maybe they're just trying to appeal to the social media hype or anything like that.
Maybe so. That could be the case. You want to talk about it today? 505-6009 is our telephone number. Got so much to talk about today. How about Pat Murphy managing the Milwaukee Brewers? I mean, this is wild. 10 years ago, he was here in El Paso with the Chihuahuas for the first 3 seasons, 14, 15, 16. Now, he is the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers after all the years he spent with Craig Counsell. What a story that is.
I thought he was going to follow Craig Counsell to Chicago, Steve. This one caught me by surprise. All personal, relationships aside, is this a good move for Milwaukee?
That is the big question we're asking. We'll see. I mean, we always liked Murph here in El Paso because he was very media friendly, and I've had plenty of conversations in his office in the clubhouse, and he was great. So, at least you've got someone that's got a ton of experience, a lot of college and AAA and pro manager experience, and all these years now in the bigs with Counsell. Let's see if Murph is the answer in Milwaukee. I'm interested to see how this experiment goes.
Well, it's not like they have a rebuild ahead of them. They're pretty much built as kind of a contender. They're at least built to win right now. So let's see what he could do with this team. I mean, add some pieces, try to get them a little bit over the top to where they were. Still just so fascinated by this whole story, and I'm sure they're going to want to go out and beat teams like the Cubs when their former manager left over there this offseason.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. We got a lot to cover on the show today. And apparently everybody's saying the same thing. King Eric repeating what Chad said, that the courts are only for the NBA in-season tournament, which, as Eric said, dumb in itself. So, yes, most people I know don't like the NBA in-season tournament. They think it's ridiculous. So, anyway, we could talk about that. We've got UTEP to talk about. A lot of material here on our Wednesday edition of the program. In fact, with no Jay Jaffe, we've got a good hour of your phone calls and also your posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, 505-6009 at 600 ESPN El Paso. Let's go to Charlie Wan. He's standing by with our first. The NBA's in-season tournament, the more confused I get. So
How do you like the marketing behind it, huh?
Yeah. I guess this thing started on Friday, November 3rd. That was the beginning of the in-season tournament. And they play on, so they've played the 3rd, Friday, November 10th. Then they played yesterday, and they will continue. I believe it's going to be Friday the 17th, Tuesday the 21st, Friday the 24th, Tuesday the 28th, and then Tuesday, December 5th, Thursday, December 7th, and Saturday, December 9th. And the semifinals and finals are at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas.
That's right. The interesting part about it is nothing matters right now. I mean, really, like, don't even take any of these games right now. They get a good record. Sure, you get into the actual bracket for the in-season tournament. That's when it starts to matter. December 4th, that's when you mark your calendars. That's the quarterfinal rounds. That's when maybe this gets a little exciting. I don't know. The only teams that I get excited about for this, Steve, are like the up-and-coming teams. So, if you're telling me the Indiana Pacers are a team that want to win the in-season tournament, you tell me a team like the Thunder or a team like the Timberwolves are really gunning for it, then I'm okay with it. But other than that, I'm taking all these games more like regular season games. I think the players are too. They're not necessarily trying harder or trying less hard for these games whatsoever. It just kind of is what it is in a weird way.
Towards the full standings, correct?
That's right. Yes. So there you go. And what does the team win? It's just like some extra money. I wish they got.
That's it.
Well, see, here's the thing, Steve. I wish they gave the winning team, like either a bye in the playoffs, an automatic bid in the playoffs, or maybe like an extra first round draft pick, which would be kind of interesting. So that would be my hope right there. But that's pretty much it.
Okay. And I'm looking at this. It says all 30 teams will, and then 8 teams advance to the second and final stage, the single elimination knockout rounds. Oh, here we go. The champion receives a new trophy, whoop-de-doo, the NBA Cup.
Who cares?
In addition, a prize pool will be allocated to players on teams that qualify for the knockout rounds, with allocations increasing depending on how far a team progresses in the tournament.
Every player gets $500,000.
Is that what they said?
That's right, on the winning team.
Will top performers from the in-season tournament be honored? After the championship is played, the NBA will name the MVP of the in-season tournament and the all-tournament team performance in both group play and the knockout rounds. This is not going to last. There is absolutely no way this concept becomes big.
No, I agree with you. I feel like they're trying to get the players behind this. Players are not behind this necessarily right now. Why would you care at this point? I mean, I get it. They're trying to boost viewership. They're trying to get people excited. That's more of a watching NBA type of thing. The problem with the NBA is no one watches full games nowadays. They just watch the highlights. They catch up with the NBA through, recaps or social media. That's how people consume their NBA content nowadays. And I think it's shifting to a much younger audience that doesn't care about watching a full game.
Oh, I agree. Line ringing in, 505-6009. That is our telephone number as we continue here. You know what else is interesting? I'd love to know how much they're selling these tickets for, especially if you want to go to Vegas for the championship, what that's going to cost. It's at T-Mobile Arena. It really is. But what could you possibly pay if you want to go to the championship? What do those tickets start at price-wise? So interesting. I mean, I don't know. And I'm looking right at anything else, Adrian, to see how much it costs to get into these guys.
Oh,
the championship.
That's a good call, Steve. You know what? It'd be a great trip for people who are big NBA fans. Make the trip to Phoenix and watch the Suns. People make the trip up to Denver, watch the Nuggets, or go out to watch the Spurs, whatever it might be. But this is another good opportunity with all the direct flights that we get here from El Paso to Vegas to go.
You're absolutely right. And it doesn't. I can't even see how much it is to get in, and the reason is that my computer is blocking the access to even see how much the championship tickets cost. I don't even know.
So championship tickets, nosebleeds, which, by the way, T-Mobile Arena, pretty good play, so even nosebleeds aren't that bad. $330 each.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Too much money, Steve. Unless you're going to see a LeBron in that championship round or some relevance. Come on, man. What are you doing?
I don't know.
We have playoff games that are like $25 for some teams.
Oh, that is just brutal. All right. Let me take some phone calls right now as we continue and approach the bottom of the hour. 27 past. Let's go to Memphis Drew. He's first up. Let me find out if Drew likes the tournament of champions, the in-season tournament. Drew, what do you think? Are you digging this new gimmick from the NBA, or do you think it's ridiculous?
It's okay. I love basketball, but I'm not head over heels over it. I can take it. I've been watching all the games.
I think here's
and
the problem.
My Grizzlies are really struggling, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I know
they
are.
got a lot of injuries.
So here's the thing, okay? So think about this. The NBA is trying to make the first month of the season interesting, right? And here's the problem. The problem is in November, December, you're going up against the NFL and you're going up against college football. And really, I mean, baseball just ended, but you've got the start of college basketball season, you've got college football, and you have the NFL. And I just don't think most people care. And by the way, you're right. Memphis is 2-9. They're dead last in the West right now, which would put them, 15th in the Western Conference. And, they're off to a miserable start. But unfortunately, given their current state of affairs, and when is Morant coming back?
25 games, so maybe 15 more games.
By then, they're going to have a pretty big hole to climb out of, aren't they?
Yeah, I hope they can get in the play-in tournament, then we can see what can develop. Hey, I'm glad Joel is feeling better.
Yep.
That's good news. Hey, I got a question for you. Which group of five conference teams, which one has 9 consecutive?
Of the group of fives?
Yes, sir.
9 consecutive bowl game appearances. Well, knowing you, I would think the answer is Memphis, just because
That's right.
Every time you call in, it's about something Memphis related. So that's a good one.
Right.
I wouldn't have expected that. I wouldn't. How many have they won of those 9 appearances?
I don't know. It's batting about 500, I think.
Nice.
And
nice.
Penny Hardaway, he's working at transfer portal. He's got a strong team this year. Keep your eye out for him. If he can keep it clean, that's the only problem.
That's right. Hopefully he doesn't put him on probation. That's exactly. We'll see.
Yeah.
So,
hey, what do you think of the New Mexico football coach up Lobos? You think he's in the hot seat right now?
Yeah. Oh,
think he'll return?
No, I think he's done. I mean, they're 3-7. They've just had a miserable season. I think Gonzalez will be out of time as well. I would be shocked if they keep him around. I think he's most likely going to be. They're going to be looking for a new head coach in Albuquerque too. If you think about it, Albuquerque and UTEP, the Lobos and Miners mirror each other in a lot of ways when it comes to college football right now.
Yeah, they're getting that in and out before we do also, I see.
I know.
Hey, what's
Not
your
happy
dream
about
car?
that
That's my final question to you and Adrian. What is your dream car?
My dream car?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give you our answer on that. What's your dream car?
I'll probably take a Rolls-Royce Phantom, like Sanders' son has up there in Colorado. Did you know that?
No, I did not realize he's driving a Rolls-Royce Phantom. That's what Shadur Sanders has right now?
Yeah. Well, he's got a Rolls-Royce. I don't know what model.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
That's good.
I'll
Appreciate
listen to your answer off the phone.
All right, thanks for the call. All right.
Okay. All right.
You have any opinion on mine has changed, and I'm just going to tell you my answer. Okay, this would never have been even a thought in my process up until a couple of weeks ago. But truth is, folks, one of our employees got into a car accident and T-boned a Tesla going about 40 miles an hour. And unfortunately, his car was totaled, and he was in the hospital. And luckily, he survived, but banged up, having a really difficult time. And the person he hit in the Tesla, driver's side, walked away uninjured. So I'm taking that test right now.
Yes.
All right, that's what I'll take, because that seems to be that could be the safest car on the market right now these days. Although I've been driving the Santa Fe recently. I've got the hybrid, And they also have the top of the line Hyundais, the Genesis, are beautiful cars. So I don't know. That's a tough dilemma I'm in right now as a dream car. Maybe I should just go back to my original old classic, which was I always wanted like a 55 Vet. That was always the car I would go with back in the old days. Just give me a classic 50s Vet and I'll be happy.
Flex on him. I like it, Steve.
Yeah, that would be a neat car. I was always, you know what? I don't need technology. The hell with that. Just give me an old classic that runs well and made the way they used to be made, and I'll be pretty happy. What about you?
You know, I'm not a big car guy. I don't have, a big, I guess, kind of like dream wish list for cars. I'd probably stick with I do like the new Chevy Silverado EV pickups. Those are really nice. I've seen those. I think those are like the 2023, 2024 versions.
Nice.
Like those a lot. I do like the Model X that you're talking about from the Tesla. Those are really nice in itself. And whenever I see a Bentley, I'm always thinking, man, those are really, really nice. So those would be, I guess, top three right there. Okay. Alberto's got a good one too.
Does he? Alberto, what's your dream car?
For me, a lot of people get mad because it's not super rare. I'd go with like a 70s Toyota Land Cruiser.
Nice. All right. There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. So you're going back to the 70s. I'm going 50s. You're going 70s. Adrian's going kind of like, what's your classic car?
Oh, man, I don't have a good classic car. I'm sorry. I wish I could give a better answer there.
That's all right. I'm okay with that. Were you ever into the early 64 and a half Mustangs?
Those are nice. Yeah, I could live with those. Those are really, really nice.
Fantastic. We'll keep the conversation rolling with more in a moment, but first let's go to Adrian. He's got a quick Sports Center update, 34 past as we continue. I got 2 calls to get to. I love this, by the way, from Adrian at Enemy Win the Number 3. Guys, the NBA in-season tourney is an awesome idea. Quit being prudes. There you go. Adrian, it has nothing to do with being a prude. Here's the thing with me. I have a hard time getting into the NBA these days. That's my biggest problem. Adrian's addicted. He can't stop watching it.
Right.
I have a hard time watching it, especially this time of year for me. I used to love the NBA. I would never miss games. I would watch it all. I would stay up to speed with everything. Nowadays, I don't know. It's not the same sports priority for me as it used to be. It used to be great. I could name everybody in the NBA, and now I don't know. Between the NFL, college football, college hoops, I kind of feel like that's enough. And I guess, what turned me off the most was load management. That ticked me off, and I felt like, why should I watch games if the best players on the team are voluntarily just going to skip? It turned me off. I felt like, if I want to watch a sport, I want to see the best players playing unless they're injured, not a healthy scratch like we see so much in the NBA.
So far into this season, we've seen an improvement in load management. Guys are not taking as many nights off as they did before, and I'm talking about the main guys who do. It's like it's like Kawhi Leonard. It's like Paul George. It's guys like Joel Embiid and even to some extent Anthony Davis or Kyrie Irving. Those guys are typically playing this year, which is a good thing for the product of the NBA. Plus, a lot of young guys in the NBA now.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Keep things moving. We'll go to Adrian. He's next as Sports Talk continues. Then we'll get to Abel, 505-6009. What's going on, Adrian? How are you?
Good. How you doing, Cap?
Doing well, thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Good. Talking about the classic cars?
Yes.
I would pick a 1970 orange-red Ford Pinto.
A Pinto, huh? Nice. All right. I like that. Tell me why the 70 Ford Pinto? What really appeals to you about that?
Well, it's just a 2-door hatchback classic car, man. It looks pretty cool. It is.
That's true. Those on the road still. When I was in the 80s, that was still pretty big.
Yeah, man, they talk down about that vehicle a lot, man, but I actually like it, man. So
right on.
I would take that.
All right. What do you think about the NBA? Give me your thoughts on this in-season tournament.
Yeah, so if I read correctly, I mean, there's no more games added to the season. It's just a lot of the games that they would play in conference games.
Yeah.
With this tournament, it's actually being a little bit more meaningful in regards to winning and losing. Top 10 of the conference go into the playoffs. But this one gives just a little more of a competitive nature to those games and a good amount of incentives. I mean, like, why would the NBA players not want to have an extra $500K in their bank when it's just regular season games, but put into a tournament scenario during the season? I mean,
that's fair.
It's a win-win for them.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's true.
And it's a little bit more like also for fans to for those games to be meaningful, you know. And for the players, now they don't want to sit down during those type of games because they become a little bit more meaningful. It's a little bit more extra cash in their pocket, and they're more willing to play. So the NBA is getting smart in regards to trying to make these not unmeaningful.
More is what you're saying. Make them mad.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're telling me that I should watch, check it out, and maybe I'll enjoy it.
Well, yeah, maybe a little bit more deeper into the playoffs.
Okay.
You know, once you go into the bracket stages, that's when it gets interesting because, you know, you're going to see a lot of teams playing their starters. And at the end of the day, who doesn't want an extra trophy?
Yeah, you're right. You know what?
Right?
All right. I might have to. You might. Maybe you're selling me on this one. Maybe I need to start tuning in, Adrian. I appreciate it. The suggestions on that.
Hey, I just want to mention, Steve, I think while the $500K it could be nice to the pocket, and I get why they're doing it. They want to. Why not make it even more incentivizing to these teams right now? Offer a playoff, an automatic playoff spot. If you win the whole thing, you automatically get in. Now, where you're seated is based on your record, but maybe you don't have to go through like a play-in tournament game and you automatically get a spot, or at least give them a draft pick. That means that contender could end up dangling that draft pick in the first round near the trade deadline and then move that to maybe acquire some good talent by that deadline. So kind of incentivize it a little bit more than just $500K.
Maybe the pick would incentivize even more than the playoff spot.
Right.
Because now you're giving, especially if you give them maybe like a supplemental first round pick. So
yeah, I think you're onto something. Maybe even right after the lottery, like you do it like at 16 or something like that.
That'd be a valuable
that's an
pick.
Interesting one. Yeah.
That would be a valuable pick. Here's Abel joining us next. Abel, are you enjoying what the NBA is doing right now?
Hey, Steve and Adrian, how are you guys doing?
Good, Abel. How are you?
Good as well, thanks. So, just kind of, looking at this tournament thing, I'm like Adrian, I love the NBA, love watching it and all that. But,
okay.
we all know that the NFL is king, and that's the top sport that, that we as a country get into and all that. So, I do, like what Adrian is saying as far as, this in-season tournament, with maybe that draft pick kind of incentive thing.
Yep.
But, look, listeners maybe not like this. But, I still think that the NBA season starts too early, how it starts in October. Even with this tournament that they're doing, I understand, they're trying to draw that, that draw to, get us fans into it. But I would say, the NBA should start on Christmas Day. That should be the day that they start. I think that would kind of draw a little bit from the NFL, even though they're kind of doing games on Christmas now. And, because there's that law that we have when the NBA ends in June to when NFL starts in September, that law that we have with no sports is kind of crazy. And, after COVID, when we got that NBA season pushed back a little bit, we had games during, 4th of July and during the middle of July. It was nice. So I think that'd be kind of cool if, the NBA would kind of maybe just switch their time from around. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe it'll happen one of these days. Maybe they will do that. Who knows? I mean, it's so hard to figure with the NBA sometimes. It really is. But I get the idea. I get what you're saying, and just try to. This time of year is difficult, so I get the idea of the in-season tournament. But do you like the way the courts are colored?
Maybe with with how the Warriors and the Timberwolves got into it, and the Thunder and Spurs too. Maybe they're that's kind of giving them a little bit of extra juice with this tournament. If the players are all up for it, and they're kind of, bringing it out there more, I mean, maybe this tournament's good for them. But the courts themselves, there are some designs that are kind of cool. The Bulls one is real nice, but there's some that are just like, what are they doing?
I know. That's true. There are some issues with that. So, listen, I like it. I'll definitely take the the comments into consideration. But again, Abel's, he's a basketball fan. He just says it's a tough time of year when you're dealing with October to try and early November to get people excited.
I like the idea to start at Christmas, and I also like the idea of stretching it deeper into the summer because we get to that period, Steve, where there's like no sports on. Why can't the NBA take advantage there right before NFL preseason starts? That's when the NBA season should end. Mm-hmm. I loved when they did the bubble format because they really took over that late summer period of all the sports, and really the whole entire sports world watched the bubble and what that was, the type of basketball that was going on there. So I would prefer them go deeper into the summer and start later, like Abel said. I like this idea.
All right, we've gotten deeper into the hour, taking more phone calls here, talking all the NBA conversation. So we'll come back, we'll take the break, we'll return with Eddie and Fort Bliss, 15 in front of 5 o'clock as Sports Talk continues, 600 ESPN El Paso. Still to come, Jeff Erickson joining us in about a half an hour. Let's go back to the phones right now and say hello to Eddie and Fort Bliss. Eddie, thanks for waiting. What's going on?
Not much, Steve. So to answer your question about the NBA, do you remember seeing Spaceballs back in the 80s?
I love Spaceballs. Yep.
Remember halfway through the movie, they do the Spaceballs 2, a grab for more money?
I do.
That's what I think about when I think about this quote-unquote in-season tournament. Spaceballs 2, a grab for more money.
There you go.
Anyway.
Why not make the tickets? Why not make the tickets to the championship game in Vegas free and give everybody an opportunity to get into a lottery system instead of charging $300 to go sit in the bleeds over in at the T-Mobile Arena? Yeah, please.
Spaceballs 2, a grab for more money.
There you go.
So, question for you: what do you think about the award, the Major League Baseball postseason award so far?
So far, so good. I like where we're going on that. I think Cy Young is supposed to be today.
Blake Snell,
they just announced Snell for the National League.
Garrett Cole just won the AL award about 15 seconds ago.
So I with Snell, now call me old school because I don't give into WAR. I hate that as a quote-unquote stat. But for you to lead the league in wins, strikeouts, have more, I guess, a better whip, and still end up losing the Cy Young because one guy had a 2.25 ERA and a better WAR by 3 points. I don't like that. I don't like the feeling.
I think
Strider got ripped on that one.
I'm looking at Snell. 32 games started, 180 innings, a 2.25 ERA. He struck out 234 batters, and you hit 181 against him. I mean, that's, when you're limiting a batting average to 181, it's hard to argue that. It is. I mean, I thought Blake Snell, Blake Snell did everything but win games, and part of that was because San Diego stunk.
No, I do agree with most of that, but at the same time, I also look at it as Strider I think he had a 3.8 ERA. He also pitched more innings. He had a better whip. He had more strikeouts, I think 40 more strikeouts.
He finished fourth. He finished behind Zach Gallen and Logan Webb. So, you want to make these look, and here's the thing. If you've got an ERA almost at 4, you can't win the Cy Young. You just can't. It is not if that was Strider's ERA, that's just not good enough.
I think the reason I think it is, though, the one thing is Strider does have a history on is giving up the long ball. So if you look at it, I think he gave up 8 or 9 more home runs than. So I guess that does kind of count against you.
And wins, by the way, when you're on the Atlanta Braves, you're going to win baseball games. You won 100 and you won 104 games. Truth is, if you put Blake Snell on the Atlanta Braves this year with the season he had, he probably would have won 25 games.
No, I could agree with that.
So. But it's an interesting point. It really is. I think 3.86 ERA. That's just it's just not good enough. That's the problem with me. 20 wins is nice. Only wanted to win 20 this year, but that ERA is just too high for me. That's why I couldn't. I don't think has there ever been a pitcher that's won the Cy Young with an ERA at almost 4?
I'm pretty sure there has been, probably back in the 90s, but I can't think of many off the top of my head. Now, the one thing I can think about is the fact that he did have 280 strikeouts this year, which was by far and away
Here we go, by the
then
way.
again-
I've got an answer for you. The highest to win the Cy Young Award was Lamar Hoyt, who had an ERA of 3.66 in 1983. So
Wow.
there you go. 366. And we said Strider was 386. So 386. So yeah.
So you're talking probably what, a run and a half, a start more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough. That's a tough call. So, hey, good job today on the call, Eddie. I appreciate it, but we're over the time limit. We got to come back. We'll have hour number 2 in a moment. I do want to give some thoughts on UTEP's game on Monday. We'll do that right after this. 600 ESPN El Paso.
Steve Kaplowitz and Adrian Broadus.
All right, start of hour number 2. The more I think about Spencer Strider, I just, listen, you get an ERA over almost at 4, and even if you win 20 games, you put Spencer Strider on the Padres, and he's probably winning 10 games instead of 20. You put Blake Snell on the Atlanta Braves, and more than likely Snellzilla is going to be winning 24 games, not 14. I mean, that's just facts are facts, right? You're batting 181 against Blake Snell. He's got a wins above replacement of 6. And Spencer Strider has a wins above replacement of 3.4, meaning Snell almost doubled the value. To me, there's no argument. Not this year. No argument.
Logan Webb, Zach Gallen, those are the two that finished second and third, Steve, and they only received one first-place vote. So look at what the voters said. They say it's pretty much a landslide for Blake Snell receiving this one as the NL Cy Young. And in fact, Strider, he finished 4th. Meanwhile, Justin Steele, who I thought had a great year, he finished 5th with the Cubs. But again, no one stood up with Snell's numbers.
Logan Webb had a good season. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he won 11 games, lost 13 because he was with the Giants. But he had an ERA of 3.25, pitched well, had a good wins above replacement. He did. The biggest issue I have with him, in terms of just his value is, once again, had a losing record. That is. And I don't know, Blake Snell had an ERA a full run lower. And San Diego was worse than the Giants this year. So think about that. I don't know. I mean,
that tells you everything right there. Numbers don't lie.
No. It's just the way things are. And really, I mean, Padres had 3 more wins than the Giants, but these were 2 very similar teams this year. They're both, Padres were 18 games out of first place. Giants were 21 games out of first place. The only reason the Padres finished with a better record than the Giants was they won their last 5 games. The Padres did. Giants, they didn't play well down the stretch. The Padres were red hot. But, I mean, yeah, I thought Blake Snell clearly deserved the Cy Young. I really do.
Yeah, and everybody, the voters would agree with you there, Steve. 28 of 30 first-place votes for Blake Snell here.
Now,
and who's currently a free agent, by the way.
And by the way, I mean, the Padres aren't signing him because as much as it would behoove the Padres to sign Blake Snell, between Machado, Tatis, having to unload Soto, Bogarts, Cronenworth, they've got so many long-term crazy contracts right now that they would need to shed about 2 or 3 of those if they're going to have a legitimate shot at trying to bring somebody like Blake Snell back. I'm worried about the Padres next season just because I don't know what this rotation is going to look like. It's going to be in shambles. Darvish is another one that's long-term contract and got hurt towards the end of the year, so I'll be really interested to see what the Padres do this offseason.
Yeah, they might need a second or third loan, Steve. That's the bottom line.
Could be. Or they've got to trade Soto and package one of their long-term contracts with him in order to try to shed additional salary.
Yeah, which is probably going to be the reality. And, for Soto in San Diego, we saw flashes, and it just never, got to the success to where the Padres really wanted.
I wasn't with you yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to talk about the UTEP win Monday night over UC Santa Barbara. And even though A.J. Mitchell didn't play, and I know we can look at that, look, team's been impressive. They really are. You can knock them for free throws, shooting 58% from the line on Monday, but this team they're fun to watch. They score, they can shoot, they can dunk, they're athletic, and since Miner fans had a chance to get excited. I think the last legitimate time the Miners fans were this excited early on was the year that Rodney Terry beat Texas Tech, and everything looked great until that trip to Hawaii when all hell broke loose and the whole season unraveled. That really was the last time Miner fans were thinking big with a UTEP basketball team.
Yeah, I could 100% agree about that, and I like the comparison to 2019. The interesting part about 2019 is it was a lot of veterans that year. I mean, it was like Nigel Hawkins, Jordan Lathan, which at the time had been around the program for a little while. Bryson Williams was just kind of coming onto the scene, but wasn't necessarily the alpha on the team. They had other leaders on that group, and I think they needed an alpha on that team to kind of help them through those adverse times. Remember, everybody starting to quit the team as well. It just got real messy that year, Steve. I don't anticipate a downfall this year, but I also don't anticipate the same upside as they did that year. I mean, the upside to that team was pretty high.
I've got a couple things I want to play for you. I want you to hear the Miner Talk mashup from Monday night. I think that's important to play, and the awards we gave out after Monday's big win over UC Santa Barbara. I think that's pretty important to play. And then also today, this is very cool. I don't know how many of you had a chance to listen to Freddie and Harry before we took the air this afternoon, but our very own Sal Montes got through today to Freddie and Harry and joined them on their show preceding ours. And Sal's a big fan of ESPN, especially Freddie Fitzsimmons.
Steve, I think the fan base appreciates the style of basketball that this team plays. It's very exciting, and it makes them want to go back to watch this group again.
Negative. Let me hear the negative comments.
Oh, I did not. So I didn't record those.
No. In other words, I don't want to hear the actual calls. Like, you tell me what the negative comments were.
So negative comments suggested, hey, they didn't play UCSB at full strength. They
Fair
haven't
enough.
played anybody up to this point.
Fair enough.
And then the other negative call was talking about, hey, I guess the goal should be every single year an NCAA tournament bid, and they didn't feel like they were an NCAA team at this point.
They're not. I mean, they're not. They're not. Please. They're not even close to being an NCAA tournament team at this point. But you want to know something? They've given you excitement in November, something we haven't had in a little while. So I agree with those calls. They're right. We haven't played anybody up to speed yet. We will in California, and that's going to be good. And I also agree that they're not an NCAA tournament team. But here's what they are. They're exciting. They will get better. And if they're playing like this out of the gate, the question is, as they get better and better and better, what could the future bring as we get into 2024? And that's what's going to have Miner fans dreaming for a trip to the postseason. Not saying it's going to happen, but at least, and understand this, they're not a postseason team right now. I mean, to me, that's not even a question. But they have the potential if they continue to develop and grow, which they could. And that's exciting to me. Very exciting. All right. So, Adrian, I agree with the two negative callers, but I feel like those are valid points. But on the flip side, a lot of potential with this team, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Good upside, and when you look at the Cal game, real quick, Steve, wonder if Keontae Kennedy will not play. He hadn't played so far, 3 games into the season, upper body injury, and also questions about his eligibility this year. So that's been up in the air right now on whether or not he'll play against UTEP on Monday.
Isn't this like Keontae's 6th team of his career? No wonder there's I'd be questioning his eligibility too. It's like, how many different places can one human being attend college and still have a chance to have eligibility? So, yeah, I would also be wondering a little bit about that, too.
Yeah, I think he's doing his 3rd Masters or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Jeff Erickson coming up in just a little bit. Plus, we'll play Sal's call on Fitz and Harry. That'll be fun, too. Freddie and Harry, I should say. But first, let me go to Augustine. He joins us next. What's going on, Augustine?
Hey, Steve, good afternoon. Hey, surprise, surprise. I was not one of those negative calls. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Steve. More than anything, I think this team is really, really giving it all. You can tell by the way they're playing. At least the E for effort is there completely, and I think the buy-in to the program, which is more important, I think it's there. So, I mean, the awesome thing is now we have a team that can compete and actually, make Miner fans dream of something else.
Yep.
Maybe not this year.
Well, no, this year is what you want. You want this year. I mean, Zid Powell has got 1 year. So you want to make sure it's this year if that happens. But the point is they've reloaded Augustine, and right now this team has potential. And we haven't been able to say that in a while.
Yeah, exactly, Steven. And that's the cool thing about this team. But the cooler thing, like I said, it's the players actually, playing for each other. There's no ball hogging. There's no, the points in the paint were better. So, I mean, I'm positive about this basketball team, and I know everybody's going, who's that? Who took over Augustine's voice? But this is me, everybody. Miners will have, I'm probably stretching, but is a 20-game win season possible?
Well, listen, as a former professional basketball player in Mexico, your endorsement is a ringing one, and I think that's important. People need to understand that.
No, they should.
Yes, they should. They should. How many years did you play? How many years did you play pro ball in Mexico? How many years?
Long time ago, Steve.
Yeah, but how many seasons? How many years did you play pro ball in Mexico?
5.
5 years, folks. Augustine. And by the way, we've tried. There are no pictures of his professional basketball career in Juarez and in Mexico. But Adrian, for a guy that spent 5 years playing pro basketball in Mexico, that's a big endorsement from Augustine.
Man, there was not even a team photo or
nothing
anything like that.
I've searched. I have searched.
No stat books.
No,
nothing like that.
I have found nothing.
He played center, Steve.
Center?
Yeah.
Augustine, is that true? You played center?
No. I'm too tall to be center.
Too tall. There you go. That's good. All right. Well, listen, one of these days, Augustine, you need to find those pictures. Bring the pictures when you bring the bottle of tequila. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. Thanks for the call. By the way, yes, Freddie Coleman, Harry Douglas earlier today had our very own Sal Montes. We'll have Jeff Erickson joins us right now to talk a little fantasy sports at this time. You can check Jeff out at rotowire.com. He's got his weekly value meter. That is the lead story up right now on the football section at rotowire.com. We talked about it last week. You gave me advice, and that advice was great, but that advice could not save me from having a terrible week in guillotine and being the latest victim following Adrian. Back-to-back weeks, Jeff, that the two of us were eliminated, and thanks to Trevor Lawrence's just trash performance at home against San Francisco, that pretty much sealed my fate for Week 10.
Oh, brutal. And, Josh Dobbs has had more 20-point fantasy performances than Trevor Lawrence has this year. That's all you need to know how frustrating it's been for him.
Yeah, thanks. That doesn't really make it feel any better, Jeff.
I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't. We knew it was a tough matchup. And the thing is, I don't even think Lawrence has been playing all that badly. I think the play calling is really kind of curious. They don't take shots deep at all there. And do they not trust their offensive line? Do they not trust their receivers? It's just I don't understand what's going on.
No, that makes two of us. I don't either, but I'm going to tell you something. There were a lot of problems Sunday. Saquon Barkley had a miserable performance. That was bad. And Lawrence was just trash, like I talked about earlier. And then, unfortunately, Drake London and George Pickens didn't produce. So when you have a collection of disappointments, there's only so much Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, and Romeo Doubs could try to do to save me.
Yeah, exactly. It was tough, and nothing worse. I'll tell you, the only thing that's worse than getting knocked out of a guillotine league, depending on your stakes, is getting knocked out of your survivor pool, backing your favorite team. When you have misgivings about it, no less, which was the case for me. I got knocked out of Circus Survivor by going with the Bengals, even though I knew that it wasn't great. I just didn't have the right pivot for it there. Sure enough, they lost. Tyler Boyd dropping that touchdown in the end zone. Ugh, brutal.
Meanwhile, C.J. Stroud is playing himself not just into the Rookie of the Year conversation, but potentially the NFL MVP conversation if things continue to go like this for him.
I still think there's a few more hurdles for him to overcome. It would take the Chiefs really falling apart for him to leapfrog Mahomes, for instance, just because the Chiefs are clearly a better team right now. But because often the MVP is a team award, not an individual award. But yeah, he's playing fantastic, and love it. I love watching it. And at least I had it on my fantasy teams in a few cases against my Bengals. The thing is, there was a play that didn't even count that impressed me more than almost just as much as anything. There was a play where Robert Woods caught a ball in the end zone where he was ruled to have kind of gone out of the end zone and then come back in. It was like Stroud's sixth read on the play. He was, under pressure, threw a dime on the run. It was just a sort of throw you just never see a rookie make.
I got a piece of trivia question for. Here's a trivia one. See if you can, just knock this out of the park. Name the last Rookie of the Year and NFL MVP in the same season.
Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same season. Oh.
And you can use this on one of your RotoWire podcasts. You've got my permission once I tell you this. Free use. This is good. You'll appreciate this when you talk about C.J. Stroud and the rarity of possibly winning both awards.
I think it's got to be like Jim Brown or something.
Bingo. Jim Brown, 1957.
Wow.
So that's
because and the funny thing is the MVP is such a quarterback-heavy award that's why it had to go way, way, way back. It's just. And because, typically rookie quarterbacks don't perform. It has to be rookie at another position, but yet other positions don't win MVP. And wide receiver, for instance, never wins it. Cooper Kupp couldn't win the MVP in his record-breaking year. That's how hard it is for wide receivers to win the award.
Some of the teams, Jeff, that we kind of wrote off early in the season are now starting to catch a little bit of momentum. Raiders, Broncos. You put the Colts in that conversation, although they've won some games earlier this year. But you maybe put the Cardinals now that they have Kyler Murray back in that picture. Do you like any of those fantasy guys from any of those teams right there, knowing that they're kind of coming back here, despite us maybe writing them off earlier this season?
Well, Javonte Williams has certainly gained a lot more fantasy value. Not only is are the Broncos playing with leads, so they're running the ball more, but he's become a bell cow back. He's getting 20-plus touches a game now. They were working him in slowly at the start of the year, and now he's clearly the guy. He's getting targets in the passing game in addition to running between the tackles. I like what I see from him. It's not explosive, but it's steady. It's strong. So he's someone whose stock has definitely risen.
Others that you could also look at and say the same thing about?
Yeah, well, Jacobs, too. I mean, the Raiders are trying to become, that's their identity, is they want to punch in the mouth. That's the Antonio Pierce is trying to instill that. And, it's kind of working. Albeit, I want to kind of slow the roll there a little bit because the Raiders' 2 wins become against a Daniel Jones getting hurt and going to Tommy DeVito in a game against the Giants, and they are already truly pathetic even with Jones, and then against the Jets and Zach Wilson. I want to see them, this week on the road at Miami, where they're definitely taking a step up in class before I fully buy in. But at least they're a real NFL team now, not the clown show that they were under Josh McDaniels.
You love Jahmyr Gibbs going up against the Chicago Bears this weekend.
I love the Lions' offensive line. They're road graders right now, and they're running against everybody. I like Gibbs a lot. I like Montgomery a lot. I think I have them both in my top 10 this week. Also speaks to the fact that I don't love a ton of running backs.
More with Jeff as we keep things moving. If you've got any questions, send it to us right now on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 600 ESPN El Paso. Fantasy questions, who to pick up, who to start, who to sit, all your dilemmas. Let Jeff Erickson answer it for you. And then you can blame him if you lose like I just did when we start the segment next week. It's perfect. More in a moment. Right now, here he is, Adrian Broadus in the Sports Center Update. Adrian, thank you very much. Let's stay along the lines of players and plays that Jeff Erickson absolutely loves this week from RotoWire.com, folks. He joins us every week to talk fantasy sports. You love Dak Prescott against Carolina. How could you not, right?
Exactly. So much for Mike McCarthy grounding this passing offense. Coming out, they've now had 3 straight games where Dak has been on fire. It's raised CeeDee Lamb to new heights. They're giving him tons of targets. Granted, Dallas seems to have found like the scheduling magic this year, that they're facing all these really bad teams exactly at the right time. Facing the Giants when they did last week, the Patriots earlier this year, and they're taking advantage of it there. They're rolling right now, and I don't see any reason why I would stop. The one guy not profiting from all this is Tony Pollard, who Yahoo just took off their can't cut list. That's how far he's dropped this year. He hasn't scored still since week 1.
Let's talk about the news out of Cleveland. Deshaun Watson out for the year with that shoulder injury. They said that he wanted to keep playing, but they were worried that if he got hit again, the shoulder could just be gone for good and ruin his career. So he's out, and in is not P.J. Walker, but instead rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson, somebody we had a chance to see last year at the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And we saw him earlier in the season against the Ravens, where he was pressed into action like an hour and a half before the game. When remember that Watson was medically cleared with that shoulder and then couldn't go, and so DTR came in and really struggled against the Ravens. He has a similarly tough matchup against another AFC North foe in the Steelers. The total in this game, Steve, is all the way down to 33.5. I haven't seen that ever in an NFL game. This is University of Iowa stuff here.
Jeff, when it comes to the Bills, they are kind of pressing a little bit of the panic button right now. They fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Joe Brady's now in the mix there. How does that change them offensively, knowing that their skilled position players have been underwhelming, to say the least?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going to change play calling wise. I feel like Dorsey is a bit of a scapegoat. I don't think he is the one that made Gabe Davis drop a ball that turned into an interception. He's certainly not the guy that had 12 guys lining up to try to defend the game-winning field goal and give them a second chance. I don't know, scheme-wise, what's going to change too much there. I'm still trying to dig into that a little bit more. But maybe it's a case of they kind of turn Allen loose, if you will. The funny thing about all this is Allen he's had all these turnovers. He still scored the second most fantasy points per game this year at the quarterback position. He has the most cumulative points because Jalen Hurts has already had a bye week. So you haven't lost by having Josh Allen on your team. The Bills have lost, and I don't know. I think it's tough because the defense isn't what they were thinking they were going to get either, because they've had such key losses. Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, Von Miller's done nothing this year. They're sitting at 5-5, and they had to find a scapegoat.
Man, are there any particular favorite plays you don't like this week?
Well, Amari Cooper at home usually is a play. Now with the quarterback change, you got to downgrade him significantly, I think. May not be able to bench him, but I certainly not use him in DFS. That's for sure. And you might be. Maybe that puts him into the 30s. Maybe you're loaded at wide receiver. Like for instance, I'd start Tank Dell over Amari Cooper this week.
Okay, that's good. Good advice from Jeff. Again, if you want to see his value meter and everything they've got up at the website, it's rotowire.com, folks. A lot of content, a lot of material. Today was Cy Young Day. Give me a reaction towards the news. Blake Snell and Garrett Cole capturing the AL and NL Cy Young.
I'm not really surprised at either. Little known fact that it was Cole's first. He's been the first, pitcher we draft in leagues for a number of years now that he finally got his first Cy Young, and yet it's Snell's second, and he now has one in each league. I thought that was noteworthy. Snell is a free agent. Going to be interesting to see who plunks down for the big bucks to sign him. It probably won't be the Padres, unfortunately, especially with the passing of their owner.
A lot of material. That's true. With you're talking about Seidler passing away. A lot of material up at the website right now, not just for fantasy football, but fantasy baseball as well. I know you've been busy with projections, and now with free agency starting, things could get pretty interesting these next couple months.
Yeah, we finished projections for our top 300, the one that we did the roundtable. I now have projections for every one of those players in there, and we'll have a whole lot more on the site soon. As we start to ramp up the process. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Always the hot stove league is always fun.
AFL just wrapped up a little while ago, too, so I'm assuming that could also give James Anderson an opportunity to write some good stuff about the league and how things ended with certain players seeing their stocks rise.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's been doing. He has a really good podcast from last week that kind of reviews the top performers from the AFL. Highly recommend you check it out. And James has been cranking out good podcasts every single week. He has another one that's Cubs-centric today with Sarah Sanchez, who runs a great Cubs blog. So make sure to check those out.
Give me your thoughts on Pat Murphy getting the gig in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of continuity there. He's been their bench coach for a long time, former college coach. This is they're doing what they can to at least maintain all the coaching staff, at least after Council left for the Cubs. I'm more concerned about what they do with the payroll, what they do with the players, than I am the manager. But they have one tough blow already that they're not going to have Woodruff for a good chunk of the season. So I'm very interested to see what the Brewers do this offseason.
Murph, the former Chihuahuas manager for the first 3 seasons.
That's right.
That's right. From 14 to 16, he was here in El Paso.
So what's your reaction to that?
Oh, I loved Murph. He was about as media friendly as you're going to get, especially for the first few years. He was the perfect guy for that, and we liked him a lot. I'll be interested to see how the players and the vets gravitate toward him. But you said the best part. He's been with Council for so many years now in Milwaukee. I'm sure that he's going to be a very familiar face, and they're not having to bring in somebody that ultimately would maybe struggle to gain confidence in the clubhouse. So in that regard, I think Murph, who's always been considered a player's coach or a player's manager, will be a pretty safe bet out there in Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing it then. It's always good to have a little local knowledge.
No doubt. All right, listen, always great having you on. If people have never been to RotoWire and really explored the site, despite the fact that you've been with us for about the last 10 years now, Jeff, you have an opportunity for people to explore the site without even having to throw down a credit card.
Absolutely. We got a free trial. It's a couple of days. You get a peek behind the paywall. Just go to rotowire.com/free. Unlike a lot of free trials, we don't require a credit card. If you don't want to subscribe after your free trial lapses, it just lapses and you move on with your life. But hopefully you like it. You kick the tires around and say, wow, this is some great stuff here, and you want to subscribe. So rotowire.com/free.
Look forward to it. We'll talk to you next week. If you're going to be around the day before Thanksgiving, that would be terrific. If not, we'll make arrangements and have you back again real soon.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Steve.
All right, Jeff. Jeff Erickson joining us here on Sports Talk. Sal's going to be dropping by the studio in a little bit. We'll get his thoughts on his call in today to Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio. Freddie Coleman, Harry Douglas. That happened today. We've even got the call recorded, so Sal can set that up for us. Plus, Keitha Adams will be by in about 20 minutes as well. Busy show still to come as we continue right here, 600 ESPN El Paso. Sure, since we will have Keitha Adams dropping by our 600 ESPN El Paso, River Oaks Properties, Schoolyard Sports Studios. And speaking of Schoolyard Sports, Mr. Schoolyard Sports himself, Lane Frank, will be by tomorrow. Following our weekly chat with Lee Sterling from ParamountSports.com. So, yeah, we got good stuff in store for everybody later this week. Again, football has 2 games left. That will be Saturday against Middle Tennessee. Then the following Saturday, the final game of the year at home against Liberty, and that'll wrap things up. We're going to be busy as well. We got basketball with the men's team playing Austin P Friday night, and I'll get the opportunity to call the action courtside with the one and only Steve Yellen. In fact, we're making plans, Adrian, to have you join me courtside at the Haskins Center for a very special Friday sports talk prior to the start of UTEP men's basketball.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm still working out some of the details with some of the guys back here. And yeah, that'd be awesome to do that on Friday. We, of course, have Minor Talk presented by the Oscar Eddie at the Agency right afterward. And it's been very lively here to start things off in basketball. Somebody asked, hey, if basketball has success, would that distract everybody about what's to come for UTEP football? And could UTEP football sneak, letting Dana Dimmel coach out his contract next year with excitement of basketball kind of, shadowing all of it right there? Somebody asked that to us this past week on Minor Talk.
It's an interesting question. It's a good one, and you start to wonder how you can answer that. That does make it. Again, it's so interesting because I was at lunch today, and one of the conversations was about the football, the future of the football program, and is it possible that Dana Dimmel does not lose his job? And I said, anything's possible here. I mean, you can't rule out any possibilities at this point. So, if UTEP decides that they can't afford the buyout, then yeah, they'll let him coach out that final season. But that would be I would almost equate that to Doug Martin's last year. Remember when Doug Martin was coaching out at New Mexico State and you just kind of said, man, can't wait for this to end? And then it did, and they brought Jerry Kill on board, and then the rest is kind of history. I think it'd be along the same lines there with that.
Right. I mean, it's an unspirited fan base that would have to endure another season under this regime. That would be the reality that a lot of people would face if that was the case.
But I'll say this, the minor collective raised $300,000 for basketball, and they've used that to retain the roster and then add the 5 or 6 new players. And so far, the results look promising. You imagine if they could start a football NIL with some of the big heavy hitters here in El Paso who then could give to football like they give to men's basketball and try to help that program out, especially if in fact, they do have a new coach or trying to retain some of their key players from the last couple of years, what that could mean.
Yeah, it shouldn't even be a question like if this were to happen. It should be when this happens, Steve. This is so far behind. When we're talking about this football program not having an NIL, forget that. Not even football program. It's any program at UTEP that has athletics. They don't have an NIL program set up. Then you know what? That's a bad thing right there. You have to be ahead of the times. You have to follow along, even if it's a self-done NIL donation platform, kind of like we've seen from certain soccer programs, certain volleyball programs, stuff like that, where you can donate monthly. At least have something like that.
Well, I mean, Doyle Gaither set up that program through the website that he designed and built a couple of years ago, and that's still going strong. But that is more of like a grassroots NIL. Minor collective, it is what it is. I mean, $300,000 for men's basketball is good money. I mean, that's not exactly chump change. And, I was asking about New Mexico State's NIL, they've got almost $500,000, but what they've done is they've taken $300,000 for football, and then they've got like $170 for basketball. So when you add it all together, it's a pretty substantial NIL program, but they're using it for more than one sport. Whereas here, the specific point of the minor collective was men's basketball, not football, not women's basketball, not volleyball, nothing else, just men's basketball. So that tells me that, if you ever wanted to organize another NIL in similar fashion, you would probably need to go ahead and put that together for football.
Correct, and it feels like everybody else across the group of fives in football already have these things in place. So, yeah, UTEP just really needs to get with the times and understand why this is a priority for them. It really needs to be seen that way. The way that it's helped basketball, men's basketball specifically, should just be a ripple effect, and everybody should benefit off of something like this, too.
All right, I got a good question coming in from JD Aziz on X, formerly known as Twitter, for Coach Adams. I'll make sure we talk about that with her when she joins us here in less than 10 minutes to begin our final hour, coming off their win last night. So thank you, JD, for that. And if anybody else has questions, you can call or message into the program at 600 ESPN El Paso. Not to mention also our free mobile app. Pinky has been active today on the app with a lot of comments. In fact, he was talking earlier about the NBA discussion that we had, and here's what he said earlier about your NBA talk. Come on, Adrian. The NBA season is only a month into it. Wait until later in the season and don't buy a ticket to go.
I haven't seen a live game this year so far. I might not see one this year. I would love to, or this season, I should say. I would love to. Yeah. But I will say this. I'm watching probably NBA every single night. So Pinky will not stop me. I'm sorry, man.
Ray had a really good question. It said, what about the portal? Can UTEP basketball lose players like Tim Floyd did, and there goes the season? I don't think it's going to be in the same spot now. I feel like players are really bought into Joe Golding. They've got an NIL. They're retaining players. They're using it, and I feel almost like UTEP's becoming pretty competitive in mid-major basketball with this NIL.
But also think about this, Steve. If you have the two-time NCAA transfer rule that's now in place, that's going to deter guys guys like Otis Frazier, who's still a junior, who could be, a graduate transfer next year, might deter him knowing that he might have to sit out a year. Same with guys like David Terrell, same with guys like Elijah Jones, so on and so forth. The two-time transfer policy right there, not David Terrell, but you get what I'm saying. Two-time transfer rule could definitely sway guys the other way.
Elijah Jones was definitely a good example, of that. That is for sure. So no, I'm with you on that, and I think that really should go into play. I mean, they were so lenient. I feel like college teams took they just took it. They kind of used it, abused it, and now that the NCAA has scaled it back and they're not allowing every waiver through like they used to, things are changing a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I feel like this is the year for UTEP men's basketball. They have other conference foes who don't have guys eligible. They have most guys eligible other than Baylor Heb, so this is the time to do it. You said it earlier. Why not this year with Zid Powell, Tay Hardy, Calvin Solomon, all as seniors?
When we come back, Keith Adams will join us in studio. I'll do that. We'll have Coach on to talk UTEP basketball. Also, Sal Montes will be dropping by. We'll talk about his call-in today to Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio before we got on the air. And I want to tell you about how you can take advantage of our latest dining deals to Magic Bistro coming up Friday. So, we got a lot to cover in our final hour. We'll do it next right here, 600 ESPN El Paso.
Kaplowitz and Adrian Broadus.
Final hour underway. Welcome back, everybody. Along with Adrian and Alberto, I'm Steve Kaplowitz. As you're listening to Sports Talk Live here, 600 ESPN El Paso. The UTEP women's basketball team off to a perfect 3-0 start, including last night. They defeated Texas A&M Kingsville by the final score of 63-55. And we've got head coach Keith Adams right now on our 600 ESPN El Paso Roto-Rooter hotline, where all of our guests always appear. Coach, welcome back. First off, good to have you, and congratulations on not just the win last night, but the 3-0 start as you continue to see your team start to gel. Again, only one play you've ever coached for this season, and watching this team start to come together, I think that's the most important thing right now.
Well, hey, Steve, it's great to be back, and thanks for having me on.
Sure.
We haven't we've had some moments of some good basketball, but I think we're a work in progress. We're trying to, learn about each other, and our players are learning our system. And but the thing I've been proud of most is we've finished strong and we've closed the games out. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, it's really important that you finish strong and you close games out. And so we've had a couple close ones that we've had to, make some plays and execute down the stretch and do some things that in order for us to get the win. And so that's been a positive. And we're in a learning curve, but it feels good being back in the Dawn.
I know it. It's funny. I was going to ask you what you've learned about your team so far, but after 3 games, is it difficult to really answer that question?
No. I think that what I've learned about our team is we've got to get better defensively. Our rebounding. I think our rebounding 2 weeks ago was really, really poor because we weren't being physical enough. But we've gotten better in that. In this last game, we out-rebounded our opponent and was really good on the offensive boards. And we've been putting this, I call it a bubble popper. It's a plastic, it looks like popcorn popper. It goes above the rim. We snap it on the rim. And when we go over the other team's plays, we have that on there. So our male practice team, they run the plays, and then when they shoot, that ball's coming out every time. And we're just having to really secure the rebound and get in that mode of rebounding. I think we've improved in that, but I'd like for us to be more physical than what we're being. And then, our free throw shooting, it's been rare for me for us to be shooting like we are at the free throw line right now. My teams normally shoot better than what we have, but we're going to work on that and improve on that. But, communication, I think we could get better in that area. And then the thing I've learned is in my timeouts, like when I call out a play and I just say the name of it, we might have 4 players that boom, go right to it, and then one has a mental lapse. So in timeouts and in half times, I'm trying to put everybody exactly where they're at and exactly what we're doing, and just trying to be even more clear about that. And when I've done that, they've been really responsive to that. But it just goes to show it's that newness, and we just got to keep getting reps to where at some point, we automatically say something, we just do it, and we know it, and we're not having to think. But that's part of because of where we're at with all these new players and the whole new team and whatnot. But that's the things I've learned thus far.
Tell me this, and I know you're not going to sugarcoat this, but I always like asking you questions I'm sure our listeners would like to know. Are you a patient person in general? And if not, when you're dealing with a whole new roster and you realize that it's going to take time, does it sometimes wear on you because you want to see them pick things up quickly or maybe quicker than they have? Or are you somebody that can understand that, hey, I know it's going to take time. I am patient. And you know what? My patience is not running out right now.
I think that that's a great question. I've learned a little bit about, every generation there's traits and tendencies, right? And you have to try to get a really good feel for your clientele and what's their strengths, what's their weaknesses. And, in the last few years, we have 3 rules about practice, and it's to have great listening skills, follow instructions, and own it. And those are 3 things that I every day try to hold our team and our players accountable, because if you have good listening skills and you follow instructions, that's going to make your team better. And with so much newness, if you're not as good a listener as what you need to be, then we find ourselves as coaches repeating ourselves. And by Friday, my voice is pretty much shot because it's just there's so much we're having to go over. But the other thing, too, is owning it, And I do this myself as a coach. When I mess up down there on the floor, and sometimes I do, hey, you guys, my bad, and everyone has to be confident enough and own it when you make a mistake or when you don't do what you need to do. And that's to avoid making excuses and pointing fingers. And so those are the 3 things that I really look to hold our team to be accountable. Now, timing, there's all kinds of things that I do think you have to be patient with your team when you're in this situation in November, but by the time we get to December, there's certain things we shouldn't be having to be as patient about. I just think it progresses as you go along. And then by January, look, we're teaching it. We're going to expect you to do it, and we're drilling it. We expect you to do it. Something we don't teach, I can't expect them to do it. And that's kind of how we go about it. I think I'm patient, but on some things, the listening skills, I don't want to hear anybody make excuses. That's just not going to get you anywhere. And so I think on some things I am, and then on some things I'm not.
Keith Adams with us here on Sports Talk as we continue. This question came in on X, formerly known as Twitter, from JD Aziz. Good question. And he wants to know, Coach, how did you put it into high gear and recruit what seemed to be an entire roster within a month on your second go-around here in the orange and blue?
Oof. Well, we were fortunate. We were very fortunate that players who we had signed to come to Wichita State, we had several of them that wanted to come with us here to UTEP, and they wanted to come with us here, which, that really helped on that. And then you just hit the ground running. We just had to really work extremely hard, and I was homeless basically for, I don't know, I didn't get my home bought till July. And I didn't even look at houses till probably June, because all spring it was working on recruiting, hiring a staff, and then scheduling. It was just, that was the priorities. And so you just had to, it was really a crazy spring. But I felt like, for taking the job in mid-April, I think we did pretty good to put a team together in a short amount of time.
I agree with you. And I'm just wondering about this part, and just because it's become now a part of college basketball, did you have an NIL to work with your last season or two at Wichita State?
We had some players on some NIL, and fortunately, it's something that I think can grow, and we definitely can get that here. It does help. I also think you have to be careful with it too. I think that there's a fine line with it. Having your team be a team, and how they feel about one another and how young people are going to handle that. Mm-hmm. I think it's very interesting to watch some of the high major programs right now that have some big NIL deals for some players. I'm really going to be intrigued to watch how that goes, because how that affects you in the locker room. I don't know. Young people are human. We're all human. And when it comes to money, that can create some issues. And so I'm watching a few elite programs right now to see how they do this year, because I'm intrigued by that locker room aspect with it.
I am too. And I also wonder, you talked about high majors. I mean, I wonder about NIL and mid-major programs, and are we starting to see them come around more now in the last 6 months to a year, or would you say that mid-majors are still a little bit behind the curve compared to what we've seen in high major college basketball?
Oh no, mid-majors are in the mix of this. There's no question about that. And we really need everyone in the city of El Paso to hear this, that, NIL deals is it's a big game changer for recruiting. I mean, you can be the greatest recruiter ever, and you have a player that's going to get $30,000 at a school, whereas you don't have that to offer. I don't care how good a recruiter you are, money talks. And look, there's young people that maybe come from families that don't have much support. That's a lot of money, or that's a big, big deal. And, you look at what's happening in men's basketball, football, and women's basketball. You can just Google it, and it's unbelievable, the money and the deals that are happening for athletes. And don't think that doesn't make a big difference. I mean, think about it on a personal level. I mean, if you have a job where you can go and make $50,000 or $25,000 to $10,000, what do you think you're going to do? And so we have to all understand that.
Coach, when it comes to NIL, there also has been some previous players here who've had great social media following, have garnered a lot of attention online, and have built that following through their own likeness and through their own name and image, which is a great thing in itself. Do you also feel like that could be a good avenue for some of these players to kind of take on their own, NIL opportunities, knowing that there are those avenues, whether it be social media or online affiliations through commercials, or those things that they could capitalize on through NIL?
Absolutely. We've had some players here that have had some NIL activities that have happened because of their social media, and people that have contacted them that want to partner up with them. So we have had that happen, and it is a positive thing. It's a good thing, and it's a great thing for the player. And then it's also a win-win. It gets, the business or whatever it is that's doing it, advertisement, and they're helping support our program, and they're helping support a student athlete, which is a positive.
We'll come back. We'll talk to Coach about the trip to Riverside, California, and Cal Baptist coming up Saturday afternoon. First road game of the season for the UTEP Miners. And if you've got questions, please, now's the time to get those in. As we head over to Charlie 1, let's get ourselves this traffic update.